Hello, and welcome to this 10th video in the series Reflections on the Bhagavad Gita. We're looking at chapter 16, the first 3 verses. Now, if you have not already, I would advise you to take a look at the introductory video that's in this YouTube list for this series. It tells you kind of why I'm doing this and where we're coming from and what the format will be, and it allows me to tell you once what's going on rather than having to say this in each of the videos. Also suggest that you might want to read these in order, or view them, in order. I've got my reading material here, just because I tend to refer back, and because these are reflections that come off of what I'm reading here, I can kind of only point backwards to what I've said before. I don't know what's coming up on these things. And finally, the third thing, if you've been with us on any of these videos, you know that we start by coming to rest or pausing, or I'm not quite sure. There's a lot of words for it right now, but the idea is that we start the activity here, the listening, clean, fresh, at rest, leaving all of our cares behind. And if we still have cares, probably shouldn't be watching this video now. Get going with what you have to do. So with that said, really simple with whatever method that you have available. And there's many out there. There's even apps on your phone now that will help guide you to kind of a state of rest and calmness. But for whatever your preferred method is, let's just come to rest for a few seconds here. Well, good, ladies and gentlemen. As I've said in the other videos, if certainly more time would be useful, but it's not very exciting, to just watch somebody with their eyes closed sitting there. As it is, as you may have noticed if you've been following along, these are as plain a video as you can get. They're talks. It probably could have been done as a podcast, but kind of like being able to shake my head and point and what have you. And of course, what we'll do now that we figured out some things, I am working from material I put together over the past couple of months, and this is the chapter we're looking at, and this is the Sanskrit itself, and so on. Once I get used to the video editing program, right now I'm just using what comes with Windows because it's quick and it just allows me to kind of put these videos together. Ultimately, I'd like something a little snazzier, but we don't really need much snazz and jazz in this. The words themselves and what they might mean and what they might mean in our lives are what's important here, and I don't need a lot of special effects for that. So normally we jump right in, but since we are now at the last word of the first verse, I thought I would just do a quick how did we get here, okay? So I'm not going to read them individual in words, and those will line up to the videos that are in this list. So we first looked at abhayam, which was fearlessness. We then moved on to sattvasam sudhir, which is true essence together with purity. And actually we needed 2 videos for that because it was such a rich subject. I mean, it's all rich subjects, but purity of being, purity of heart, there was a lot to be said about that, and probably a lot more that could be said. We moved on then to Jnana Yoga, Yawashtiti, which was steadfast in knowledge, or knowledge together with steadfastness, or yoked as the word was in there. We then moved on to Dhanam, or Dana, which was giving, and then Dhamma, which was control of the senses, self-restraint, control. Yajna, which was worship, and Swadhyaya, study of one's own scriptures. I'm just giving you the simple words. Obviously, the videos go into more detail. The last video, video 9, was austerity, tapa, austerity, which had quite a lot of meanings, and again, probably could use another video all its own, but as these are just a kind of initial reflections, and they're fairly lengthy as they are, we're averaging around 40 to 45 minutes, and given that attention spans these days are down in the seconds, it's either brave or foolish of me to have videos this long, especially of somebody just sitting in a chair speaking, but that's the format that I'm using right now. And so we are finally at the end of the first verse, okay? And the word here is, in the sentence, ajawam, because you need to, the wam is ending the sentence here, much like putting a period. It's mostly for almost poetical purposes and then the general rules of Sanskrit grammar. But the word itself that we're looking at is arjawa, okay? Arjawa. Now, I just looked at it, we do have our stuff. Now we'll jump into, let's just see what the dictionary has to say, and then we'll find out what reflection brings upon it. So arjawa is straight, honest, sincere, or usually applied to of a teacher, straightness, straight direction, rectitude, propriety of act or observance, honesty, frankness, and sincerity. That's rather nice. I didn't know what rectitude was. I had to look that up. I'll have a few things to say about that in a minute. And finally, as always, all of these words are either compound words, which we'll break down and look at the individual roots, or they just point to one or more roots. And the root of arjawa is ju. That's a long U. So ja, u, ju. And according to the dictionary, we get to press forward, hurry on, be quick, to impel quickly, urge or drive on, and incite. Now this was one of the ones where when I looked up the root, I kind of thought I had the wrong root in here, and I went back on the actual word, and as I've mentioned before, the Sanskrit dictionary has been scanned, and it is available online, and there are, I want to say a number, I think there's about 2 good websites that will allow you to put in either the Sanskrit or the transliteration, and then point you to the right page in the dictionary. Excuse me. And then, so when we went to arjawa, which is page 151, if you're looking it up, I kind of look around, and the way that you work that is you look what else is in the area. But, you know, since they mentioned what the roots are and pointed to Jew, I was puzzled a bit. So it wasn't until kind of letting these things sit that certain things came to mind. So now that we've talked for 10 minutes about the dictionary part of it and everything else, let's just get to how do we go from straight, honest, and sincere to this kind of pressing forward and hurrying on. One of the things that came to mind at looking at the root of this is it was first kind of an arrow. You know, an arrow, you know, leaves, boom, and on to the target. There's no deviation. It's just straight there. It's rather quick. It's impelled by the bowstring, and if all goes well, it is indeed, you know, kind of straight. I mean, I believe, yeah, that there's a, you know, certainly not now, but probably back in the day, kind of the phrase, "Oh yeah, he's straight as an arrow." Yeah, and I believe that is, from what I'm seeing here, some of what might be suggested in aligning straightness, honesty, and sincerity up with this kind of press onward, with this impelling with this drive onward. And I don't know if we would always put those words together. Certainly straight and honest much more sound like when we talked about purity of heart or purity of being. They seem to go there. But the other thing that comes up with this, and why the hurry or the quickness or this kind of impelled path, straight in, is it doesn't allow for a lot of playing around, as it were. Idle hands do the devil's work type of thing, where if we are kind of dilly-dallying and playing around with the activity and looking at what can I get out of it? Is there a way of making some money on this? We've talked about what's in it for me. Again, these are my thoughts. I'd love to hear others. I'd love to see somebody else do this series and see what comes of that. But the idea of to the point and directly is not, I would say, is not foreign to uprightness or honesty or propriety, of the action. So that's kind of on first reflection. Now we come to the other part of this, and it is the word rectitude, which in an English dictionary was given as a definition of uprightness, which is certainly along the line here. In fact, that is the short definition given in the Gita translation that I'm using. But it also followed with something along the lines of a righteous person. And I went, oh. And here, and I don't know what to put up. I don't have any, colored flags to put up. Much like if you're watching CinemaSins or something like that, you get spoiler warnings for the movies. I will have to deviate a little bit from pure observation to, it is all opinion anyway, coming through here. But I was a little concerned about even mentioning the word righteousness or righteous person. I don't think I'm alone in this. I think, all words are living and they change over the course of the years. So what was current in Shakespeare's time, for example, that usage may have altered considerably in 450, 430, whatever the years might be. And righteous, or an upright person, or a righteous person may have had a different connotation 100, 200 years ago. I'm not sure. For my experience, and I always say your mileage may vary, but from my experience, my first thought in reading the English on this was, oh Lord, please save us from righteous people. I am leaving kind of the pure reflection and just going on to the difficulty in that. Because the one thing that I do not need, nor do I think that the world needs, is any more self-righteous people out there claiming that they have the answer, that God talked to them personally yesterday at 3 o'clock while they were having their tea and said this, that, and the other thing. This is not to say that you cannot commune with the greater, with the higher. Where I have a bit of difficulty, which is why I always repeat that this is a matter of opinion, that it's up to you and your free will to watch or not watch. What I do not see in this, and I do not think it's the intent of, at least when it starts, religion, what I do not see is you must do this or you're an evil or a bad person. I think there's a lot of that, and I think that religion is used as a shield or a way of hiding behind this kind of righteousness of we know and you don't, or we're going to heaven, you're going to hell, or whatever form that takes. So I'm taking a bit of a deviation outside of the pure reflection because I think it's important, and I hope it has come through on these videos, that A, they're my opinions, B, I am not planning to stand out on any street corner, and whether it's the Gita, the Bible, the Upanishads, whatever, you name your sacred book, I am not planning to ever be on the street corner saying that if you don't do it this way, because it says so in here, I really think you should just burn every one of those books first before you start telling people this is exactly what it says and you should be doing that. And and again, I call it thank God I am being good and you forget about it. So sort of an apologies for the deviation, but as you may have guessed, I feel very strongly about it. I don't believe the world needs any more people telling anybody else what they should be doing, good or bad. This is not the same as laws that are needed. It should be inherent in being a human being that except, in fact, in times of war, that you should not be having thoughts of killing your fellow human beings, nor taking action. I won't even get into the pros and cons of where we are with the COVID-19 and what that means. There are a lot of laws are being passed and put in. To me, they're not law. They're rules right now. Thou shalt not kill is a law. Wearing a mask in a store is a rule which is called a law for each of these states, and it should be treated as such, but it is not at the same level of universal, and you can evidence by each state is taking their own tact with that. So this is not to say that laws don't get obeyed, but that the higher up one goes in the laws, whether or not I've got a homeowners association that says, I can't have pink curtains in the living room, they all have to be white. That is not at the same level as these laws. And in one way, we find ourselves obeying the lower laws because they're kind of the rules of conduct, so that we don't, in fact, interfere with our fellow people around us. The kind of behind all of that is that I, have my rights to be as unhindered in living my life as you do. We sometimes, and this is certainly one of the times, have to pull back on some of that. So, up until 3 months ago, the thought that you needed to be with a mask or couldn't be within 6 feet of people was kind of not in the cards. Conditions change, and right now there are a bunch of rules or laws that are about that, and for the most part, people are obeying them. There's a certain amount of understanding that that they are there for the public good. Now, that's as far as I'm going to go with that, because I just leave you again to the internet boards, and there's arguments on both sides of that. But not recklessly driving, not shooting people, not stealing from people, not harming them, which we'll get to here too. There are a lot of laws on the books so that we, as each of us, can live our life as freely as is possible. Now, The necessity of that is because the higher laws are forgotten. And again, I am not here to say that one does this, that, and this, and not this, that, and the other thing. Each of us answers within our soul to how we perceive living life in a way that brings no harm to those around us, and that fits whatever our definition of good is. But certainly the words that are given here, and by the way, I'm kind of done with the righteous. I am probably not going to be using that word in here because I just think it's become such a messed up word by this point where we are. But again, when I look at this list and I go back to straight, honest, sincere, straight direction, sincerity, all I can think of is, some of the first ones when we looked at honest and truth in that. And I will ask you the same question that we asked back then. Who wouldn't want to deal with somebody who was straight, honest, sincere, straightforward, was honest and sincere with you? I mean, the thing that, and then I finally have had a chance to look at these in a little bit more detail, the thing that I see running through them is my puzzlement at why it is not considered a desirable state. Is it that I want everybody else to be honest with me, but I can be whatever I feel like it? I'm not quite sure I'm going to get buy-in with everybody on that, because they'd be saying the same thing. No, I want you to be honest and sincere, and I can do what I want. So I am still, here we are 10 videos in, I am still puzzled by this, I call it pushback of, no, you don't know. It's you're living in Fantasyland, Disneyland. The real world is, and I watched, we said that the real world sucks, it's tough, and this is just a bunch of crap. I can't do anything for you, nor should I, but I don't understand what the appeal is of saying that we don't want this. Now, some of you may in the comments go, but we do want this. And I would say, well, okay, charity begins at home. What are you doing? What is each of us, and I always include myself in this, what am I doing to be, honest and sincere and truthful, and in a way kind of faith, good faith, good faith agreement. I mean, just think about it, back in the 1930s in Hollywood, whole movies and deals were made, on the shake of a hand. And, it was just a given that the person would keep their word. Now, you could have a 50-page document signed by 10 lawyers, and you could probably get it into the courts and have it, picked out and nullified on some strange point. So this is a really wild swing of how people are acting. And so, given that we are calling this, or that it is generally called the godly qualities, is straightforwardness, honesty, sincerity, is that qualify as at least this definition of godly qualities? I would say yes. But again, it doesn't matter if I'm reading the godly qualities, the demonic, or whatever. The question is, which I have found out I say and everything, but these are my questions out. I mean, part of this is you try to understand the thought processes of what you're seeing around you. And of course, what I see around me, and maybe it's different in your part of the country or the world, I see anger and hate and madness, and I don't even say hello to people at this point because they fly off the handle. And so I say, well, is it doing them any good? I don't know. Do they like it? I don't know. But, much in the same way, and maybe this is the case because it's not like I've picked up a diet or anything either. But, much in the same way that if you're living in misery and suffering and angry and nobody likes you because you are all of those things, why not change? Why not consider something else? Now, if you say to me, screw you, I think that anger's the way to go. It gets me what I want. I don't care if I cheat, what have you. I actually say you're more honest than the people who say, oh, no, we're really, good looking good on Sundays and promises during the week. I mean, if you say I don't care about anybody, I actually consider that rather more honest than the people who are pretending to care about me. And the question, see, there we go. But why one over the other? Why spend one's time cheating, crooked, dishonest? I don't know. But I do know that after going through the first 10 videos here and finishing up the first verse, I do think that there is some value, if nothing else, that another sound is out there other than the extremely hateful sounds that are going around right now. So it's always good to get a second opinion, as it were. Whether you believe this, agree with it or not, is another story. But thankfully, up until YouTube changes their rules, I still have the ability to put out another sound. And I hope that anybody who hears this says, yeah, maybe, a possibility. And that's really all that this is about, is what are the other possibilities? I get to the cafeteria, they're having, hamburgers, hot dogs, turkey, chicken, and somebody says, why don't you offer meatballs or something like that? Okay, yeah, we could do that. That's another choice. And it is not in any of these, and this is why I know I just said I was going to mention righteous again, but this is my difficulty with the self-righteous. It's not just, I think that this is a good idea. You need to think it's a good idea. And I think that's a bit overstepping the bounds of what we as humans are called upon to do on this planet. I think before you go pointing fingers at anybody else, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind right now is, cast the beam out of thine own eye before, trying to take care of the mote in your brother's eyes. I believe that there are a lot of people who want to tell me what to do, and I'm not sure I consider them the best source of information for that. So I realize that this one is probably a little more rambling than the others were. And plus I had kind of the extra about the self-righteousness in there. But I do hope that in this short series, we've only done 10 of them on the first verse so far, that again we're just getting another view of what it means to be a human, of what it means to interact with our fellow travelers on this planet, our fellow brothers and sisters in arms, whichever way you want to look at it. I think one of the hashtags right now is we're all in this together. Well, even before this year, we've always all been in this together. Just why not help each other a bit? Why not be a sincere? Why not teach by example, an example of honesty and sincerity? Why not? And I almost think that they probably should rename these all to kind of why not? Why not be a beacon and a light and a source of inspiration and a good, sincere, and honest friend for those around you? Why not? Ball's in your court to say something about that. Right now, it doesn't seem like I have a part 2, but we'll stop the video. I'll see what comes to me, and if there's a little something to say, I'll say it. If not, well, that'll be it. So for right now, I'm going to take our little break, and I'll be back with a part 2 and find out if we've got anything to say. Welcome back to part 2 of this video. And this series, we are looking at chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita. And we are just completing verse 1. And the particular word that we are looking at is arjava, which by dictionary definition led us to straight, honest, sincere, rectitude, propriety of act or observance, honesty, frankness, sincerity, with a root that kind of had this idea of shooting forward, quickly impelled, driven on, pressing forward. Now my notes here also indicate that there is one more root, and I don't know how many of you are computer programmers out there, but as you're writing your programs, sometimes you know that there's something else you got to do, and you leave yourself a little to-do, like write this very important bit of code so the whole thing works. And I'm looking here at the paper, and I have another one of those little notes which basically said, read full definition. Now, one of the things is that there is actually a second root to this word, jimv. So if anything comes of that, we can put it in another video, but I believe that for the purposes of where we are, I don't think that anything else springs to mind right now. A lot of these, you would say, are somewhat overlapping, and all of them, in my opinion, point to a clean heart, a purity of being. Once that's cleaned up, the mind follows. It's, heart first, mind, and then body. Much as we love our bodies here and think that we are them, they're pretty well dead. Let me see. I remember a great teacher I had back in college who said, you don't even know how you do that. And it's true. And while there may be scientific explanation involving nerves and thoughts, the fact is that you just have to think. You have to think it, and there your hand gets raised. And it does, like these words do. Science would if it looked that far, would point in that direction too. So whatever the case may be, the direction appears to have been inward on all of these qualities, meaning that they are from within us. There's not a while these are very good for, good for picking up glasses, good for putting on your glasses, which I wear when I'm not this close, but there's nothing in the physical that is driving your ideas. It's the other way around. Once you have an idea, I feel like going for ice cream. I mention ice cream a lot. You should know that, okay? The idea, I should go for ice cream, is there, and then you get in the car, or if it's close by, you walk. And of course, behind even the idea, this is where we get back to the heart, and I may, in between verse 1 and verse 2, do another video, kind of I've been thinking of like a lessons learned. I'm doing a little bit of it here, but pointing what are some of the themes that have come out of this? What are some of the things? So getting back to the ice cream and the idea of it, even that needs to go back into the heart of the things that are kind of embedded in there and that we love. And so some people would have a propensity to ice cream, some people not. And, you could go down the list of anything in the creation. Some people like to paint, some people like to ski. It's kind of there in the heart, and what's there in the heart influences the thoughts, and the thoughts influence the actions. Now, clearly, all of these have to be weighed. If I have to get a paper done for work the next day, or so I say, get the code written and it's got to be in production by tomorrow because that's the day we said it would be there. That balances out, and that's a lot of, mostly at the mental level. Gee, I wanted to get over to the Dairy Queen or whatever the local place is, but if I do that, I'm going to have to stay up to 2 in the morning to finish this thing. So we are aware, we work at all these different levels, but ultimately, for the purpose of this reflection on these qualities, what I at least have seen is they tend to point back to the heart of the matter, as it were. Where are we operating from? And if I didn't say it before, I will say it now. You cannot legislate morality. You cannot pass a law. Well, you can pass them. But you cannot pass a law for people to be good. They're either good or they aren't. No law is going to make a person who wasn't going to steal anyway, steal or not steal. And if you were the type who stealing is part of your nature, the fact that we have as many bank robberies, carjackings, and everything else says that, yeah, you have to have the law. The law is for prosecuting afterwards. But nothing, you cannot make people by writing on a piece of paper saying, it's against the law to steal somebody else's car. It's there. As I say, I think it's good for where you're figuring out what kind of jail sentence to give. But nothing external is going to stop you if your heart has decided that, for whatever reason or circumstances have decided for whatever reason you need to steal, or you have reached the point where you're so deluded that you feel that there's a need to literally kill somebody else. These are horrible, terrible things, and they are lodged, not everything in everybody's hearts, but they are lodged in our heart. And at least from what I can see from here, I'm not saying the only way, but certainly one of the ways of dislodging some of the dark spots is to go in another direction. Reflect on these words. See what they mean. See what they do. Be honest. Be straightforward. Stop lying to people. Again, I look here, and you could say, well, I don't do those things. Well, good. We're in the right direction then. And I bet you the people around you appreciate it a lot. But this is a universal message. I think that's kind of a second, lessons learned on just this first verse. We have 2 more to go. None of this is anything but at the level of being a human. It doesn't care if you're black, white, gray, green, polka dot, striped. It's not for that level. Those are minor differences. I just consider it amazing that we can look at our cats and dogs and zebras and leopards and stuff, and we have no trouble about the diversity of the creation there. What I can't understand is why, once we reach the level of our fellow human beings, all of a sudden it becomes a problem. Love somebody to explain that, but it's us. It's all us. And so let's just leave that portion of it where we are, because I think I've said in at least half of these videos, why not give a try to truthfulness, to honesty, sincerity. I think the point's been made, and if I haven't made it, somebody else surely can do it a little bit better. What I want to do here, take a quick little move on to verse 2. I'm not going to read the whole Sanskrit thing. And by the way, a quick note on the Sanskrit, I am giving you the Americanized version of it. Just go to YouTube and listen. There's any number of people who pronounce it well and pronounce it much faster, which is, I guess, the advantage you get from me, is I can't do this quickly. Listening to a native speaker, it kind of races by, and it would be very difficult to pick out the starting and endings of words. So apologies to all the people who really know how to speak Sanskrit out there. But let's just take a quick look here at the verse 2, which we'll pick up. I guess that would be video number 11 in this series. But let's take a quick look at verse 2 in English, in the simple translation. So verse 2 in English is harmlessness, truth, absence of anger, please, renunciation, serenity, absence of calumny, compassion to creatures, uncovetousness, gentleness, modesty, absence of fickleness. Again, sorry about the pronunciation. Some of these words you don't even see. I'm also probably pronouncing calumny wrong, or could be calumny, and that's Calumny. I've already looked that up. Rather interesting. I'd leave that as an exercise for the students, as they say. But those are the either words or phrases that constitute verse 2, and we'll pick up that series soon. I'm still processing these videos through and getting them up onto YouTube. So with that, I think that it's been an interesting little adventure. We'll see what comes of the next verse when we get to them. So as we like to say at the end of all of these, if this is not your cup of tea, or if you think that I'm just another crazy person, which probably is correct, there's plenty of cat videos out on the internet. Enjoy. Until next time.